Yeah, sounds great.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome. Awesome.
So I'll start.
Begin.
Okay. Hello and welcome everyone to episode number 66 at the Indie Football Podcast. The roster of our guests keeps getting bigger in stature with each passing episode. If it was someone from South Africa with Quinton who came and experienced his shared his experience of being into the fantasy world, and then we passed on to someone like Neil Shah who was an American Indian. But today with us we have got Daniel Johnson with us, a sports comedy content creator with quite the social media following, I would say, on Instagram. Thank you, Daniel, for taking out the time. How are you feeling tonight?
I'm good. I've had a bit of a cold for a few days, so I was a bit worried about my voice today, but I've recovered an injury scare with my voice, but I'm ready. I'm ready for the
Is it
podcast.
because Tottenham lost to Chelsea in their first loss of the season?
Well, I mean that was part of it. I felt quite sick already before going to that game, and the game, all the sending offs and the VAR, I think it made me feel worse. But yeah.
Seriously, Daniel, sorry to interrupt you here, but do you think you guys deserve a replay?
No, I mean a bit like Postecoglou said. I think like some results will go for you, some will go against you, and
Yeah.
you can't just moan about it every week. I mean, you can moan, but just get on with it and play some football. So, but what I will say is, in the stadium, you don't get all of the information and context that you get on television. So we
Yeah.
were standing there, like I'm talking about like all the fans around me were all looking at each other saying, what's happening? I got like
Yeah.
my wife's texting me saying, I think Romero's gonna get sent off. My brother's texting me saying, oh, I think there's a free kick. Like no one knows what's happening. So it's as great as the experience is in a stadium, I think VAR is it needs some changes, but that's another topic.
Um,
Everyone has contrasting opinions regarding VAR. But Anukar sir, what do you think about VAR, and how do you think your team's fortunes, Liverpool, so far have been affected? Or do you think you are not so affected by VAR?
Some days your team comes out on top, then you love VR. Some days it doesn't, and then you hate VR. I think that is the thing with it. But one thing I really loved about Postecoglou, Daniel, is how in the post-match conference, not like how we have seen, over the years, Premier League managers absolutely going after either the VAR assistant or going after the referees, but how he was so respectful that refereeing is tough and he understands the job, and how he said that it is difficult for them to make decisions because honestly, watching the game for the last 16, 17 years, and I know Doipan will call me old for it, but honestly I haven't seen this sort of respect for the officials from any manager in the time that I have seen. So what are your thoughts on it, and do you think it's like a very positive sort of thinking, we haven't, which is quite unprecedented when it comes to the English game?
Yeah, well, first of all, like as much as I love what Postecoglou said, if we're honest, Tottenham deserved the red cards, whereas Arsenal against Newcastle recently, it looked like the ball was probably out of play.
Yeah.
I, I didn't think it was a foul after that, but the ball out of play maybe, and Liverpool with the offside that they got the lines wrong, like those are things that shouldn't be done. They should be done correctly, So I think it'll be interesting how Postecoglou responds if there's a real injustice with Spurs, which I'm not necessarily sure it was the other day. But I think it's worrying. Well, no, I was going to say it's worrying how managers are talking about referees, but actually, I think there are real problems with VAR.
Yeah.
I was saying to someone a few days ago that before VAR, we might disagree with a referee's decision. We might think it's wrong, but like 5 seconds later, you carry on. And over the years, like of course there'll be some memorable incidents like Maradona's handball, Thierry
Yeah.
Henry did that. Like
Kind of
there'll
not,
be
right?
a few, but they're like one every 5 years. But
Yeah.
now, because we are literally measuring every millimeter and slow motion, like football's played pretty fast.
Mm.
And if we're going to start pausing the video and like, it's, it's a long-winded thing. And as I was saying, in a stadium, for the people that are paying a lot of money to visit, they're not even getting the information and experience that people are getting on television. So
Mm.
it's, yeah, I can see why managers are getting frustrated. But I think that's because now we're putting so much emphasis on refereeing. It's like you turn on the TV not to watch the game, but to watch this referee circus, because when
Yeah.
a goal is scored, you don't fully celebrate now. You kind of celebrate, but you sort of turn to your friend and say, I think offside, maybe offside. There might be a handball. So, it's yeah, it's frustrating, isn't it?
But what I
Absolutely.
also feel like the beginning of this of our podcast episode right now felt like an episode 4 of a new series. So let's just go through the motions, and I am going to begin with asking Daniel, as please share your experiences of being a football fan, in terms of when did you start following, when did you become a Tottenham fan, and maybe something along those lines, so that all the listeners, the new ones, get some further context into what we are talking about.
Yeah, it'd be great. So, yeah, in case you hadn't guessed or heard, I'm a Tottenham fan. Interestingly, my dad and my grandfather are actually QPR fans, Queens Park Rangers.
Oh,
Oh,
nice, interesting.
And they're kind of like a second team for me. I see them a few times a year, but me and my brother both ended up supporting Tottenham. Um,
Mm.
my dad had a best friend who was like, my dad loves football, but he'll also carry on with the rest of his life. Like, it's not a defining thing. But his best friend many years ago was a diehard Tottenham fan. He was a season ticket holder. And I think at a sort of age when me and my brother could be influenced, I think he just tried to force us to be Tottenham fans. Also, like when I was 6, 7 years old, Gazza was at Tottenham, Paul Gascoigne, Gary Lineker, all these sort of legendary players. There was maybe Glenn Hoddle as well, but I was a bit young. But yeah, so the earliest things I genuinely remember are in 1991 when Tottenham won the FA Cup. We had Paul Gascoigne scoring this legendary goal against Arsenal in the semis, and I remember that well. And I was already a fan before that, but I was like 7 or 8 years old. So now it's or 7 years old, but I don't remember much before that. But there's pictures of me playing football when I was like 4 years old. So yeah.
Interesting.
One interesting thing that I recall from my recent trip to UK is, now that Daniel mentioned who won the FA Cup in 1991, I think Daniel would kind of remember, Anukarsh would remember through the scars of his club. But Daniel, would you know in 1988 who won the FA Cup?
I would guess that was Arsenal.
In 1988, it was a certain club called AFC Wimbledon,
Oh, was it
who had
88? Oh, yeah, that was
yeah,
classic. Yeah.
yeah, it was a classic with
Brilliant. Yeah,
they had defeated Liverpool in
that's
the
right.
1988 FA Cup final. And the reason, I mean, I know nobody asks me, but I am still gonna say it. So as part of my college trip recently, we had visited the AFC Wimbledon Football Club.
Great.
The entire stadium tour was done by the president of the AFC Wimbledon Foundation. And then he did mention how this particular incident has a big role in AFC Wimbledon's history. And they also have the statue of the goalkeeper, having the FA Cup aloft in his
Yeah.
arms as the statue, just in front of the stadium, which was actually like a great experience for us to experience something other than Premier League stuff.
Yeah.
But the fact that you also mentioned all this also, I can't help but ask you about, now that you are into your journey, I thought I will bring it up later on about your entire sports comedy creation. But Tell us a bit more about this entire sports comedy creator journey, because as fellow podcasters ourselves, this is of course not the only thing that we do right now. The other day, we are a team of 10 people now, and one of them said that podcasts are probably 10% of what we do now, but for like whatever reason, we always want to do different kinds of things. So
Yeah.
Daniel, as a fellow sports content creator, tell us a bit about your journey, and I'm sure Anukarsh would have certain thoughts to add later on.
Sure, yeah. So probably just about a year and a half ago, I had just I'd kind of been, what's the phrase? I had been resisting things like TikTok and Instagram and not really wanting to use them too much. And I think it was maybe the sort of old man in me thinking, like wanting cinema and films to be the main thing,
Yeah.
But I think I had a bit of a realization that audiences, and I include myself in it. Actually, I realized something about myself, which was if I go on YouTube and I see one video is a very meaningful short film made by a filmmaker, and another video is a comedy sketch about football, I'm
Yeah.
more likely to want to watch the comedy sketch.
Mm.
So it's like my brain might think, oh, I should watch this thing. But there's something in me that's like, well, actually, I'd really enjoy watching this short, fun thing. And I think I just realized that I was kind of fighting against things that I really enjoy and love, and then by kind of accident, I was playing around with TikTok, uploading some different things. And one thing I happened to upload was a video that I'd made about football. And it was a comedy sketch that I had made already for different reasons. And it was about a football fan who wants to miss his girlfriend's wedding because he wants to see his team, Stoke City, play a friendly game against Harrogate Railway Athletic, who are a very small team in the UK. And that video got 130,000 views, which for me was, huge numbers. And it was, as a filmmaker, you can spend so many years pouring your heart into things, and then you get like 100 views. And most of those are family, So to get that many views, was really exciting. I mean, I uploaded a few other different things that were not football, and they did well. They got good views, but not as much as the football. So I filmed another couple of football things, and they got bigger views. They got, I can't remember, but maybe 500,000, 600,000.
Wow.
And so then I decided to get some friends who are actors together. I wrote some scripts, and we had a filming day where we filmed maybe 8 comedy sketches. And, some of them got millions of views. And it was clear that obviously people love football, but people also enjoyed, there's a lot of football comedy content on social media, but I think it tends to be, people doing impressions, or it tends to be a bit over the top. And I think my style is more, I just enjoy it to look natural. Like for me, I want it to look like you and your friends on the sofa watching TV, getting into an argument, and something funny happens, So yeah, I just started doing that, and then it's carried on from there,
Interesting. I think on over the last 2 years, when we have got into content creation, we have also kind of understood that content actually, like, it looks like a lot easier when it comes to the surface, but behind the scenes, there's so much of creativity involved. There are so many obstacles involved. There are different opinions involved, and like every piece of content has so many stories behind it, and like it's pretty appreciable how you regularly come up with funny content, and some of them, I mean, I don't understand how the actors are not laughing because they are actually such funny sketches. Like there was this one about football manager, or like someone trying to do a fake conference or something for soccer manager or something. I for football manager, sorry, I know in the UK they never for say soccer. So like everything apart, I must say that making this like, where do you get the inspiration from to write such things? Like I understood the process of how it all started, but like where do you get the inspiration from? Because I understand watching football for like there are millions of football fans all over the world. It's like the biggest game, maybe, probably, globally. But having that mindset to actually make stories about it, to actually be able to generate that content on the regular, what inspires you?
Good question, really. I think, first of all, for most of my life, I've been writing scripts and I've written a lot of comedy things. So a lot of the ideas that I have tend to be comedic. And to be honest, it can be anything. If I look at my phone, I tend to just, if an idea comes to me, let's see if I can show you one. I'll give you an exclusive on an upcoming.
Yeah, absolutely. It just almost
That
makes
it's all
me.
happening folks at the Indie Football Podcast.
Yeah, it just.
When are you likely to put this out, by the way? Is it soon or?
Yeah, we will
uh,
put it out in three,
Maximum
four
day
days.
after tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah.
It's fine.
Okay.
I'll give one away. I'll give it away, but this is one we're filming next week. And so I literally just wrote down. Idea, VAR sketch, group of referees having no idea what the rules of football are. So that one is going to be. I'm going to get the actors. I've already written the script, and it's literally like the monitors, the referees are there, and they're trying to decide something, and then
Wow.
one of them is like, let's check if it's offside. And then the other guy is like, but what is offside? And he's like, draw a line. And then he's like, well, how do we draw a line? And it's, all these referees who don't know how to do it. Let me see. I'll find one more as well. Let me have a look.
I guess every time getting this sample is also going to help us in the long run, Anukar sir, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I am loving it. Like, I think, Daniel, once the podcast is done, we would love to do collaborations of any sort with you, because I think with the mind that you have, like, it's like minds that like these, which you would love to, somehow work with when it comes to the Indie Football Podcast.
Yeah, no, I think everyone has creative ideas, but I think it's just you have to go with the ones that I think a good comedy sketch is. It has to scare you a bit to put it out, because you have to think like, this might make me look silly, this might be wrong, it might be offensive. Like you have to have something, but it also has to be relatable and real. So
Yeah.
like the one I did about a guy giving a press conference, and then we realize he's in his own home and his girlfriend's like, what are you doing? It's the
Right, right.
But that's something that I don't do it to that level, but I'll be playing career mode or playing football manager. And then I go and make a coffee. And in my head, I'm saying, yeah, it was a good game. We tried really hard, but blah. And I'm having a press conference. So for me, the creativity is in catching those real moments, and making something of it. I was at a game yesterday. I went to see, with my friend. I went to see Leighton Orient v Portsmouth. They were playing yesterday, and we were both
And which
really.
which division is this?
Oh, so they're League Two, but this
Oh, so they're
was
late.
Okay.
the EFL Trophy, which is, I don't know if you know, it's not the Carabao Cup, not the FA Cup. It's a competition for the small teams to sort of
Like,
play amongst
is
themselves.
this the competition where Leicester is also currently playing?
No, so Leicester. Oh, so I think championship teams can have like their under 21s in this
Yeah,
competition.
like
Okay,
that.
is it the Premier League 2 that you guys are talking about?
Premier
No,
League
that's
2 is
sort of,
championship. Premier League 2 is championship. The third division is League 1 and the fourth division is League 2.
No, no, that I know. Like Premier League 2 is like a different competition altogether, in which
Oh,
Premier League teams play their under 21 teams, and other clubs, like the lower division clubs, they play their main teams.
what I was going to
all
say
right.
was, so
All right.
Premier
I didn't
League
know.
Two, what you're talking about, is like the under 23s of all the big clubs.
Mhm.
Oh,
But
Yeah,
what
right.
I'm talking about, the EFL trophy, is basically, obviously, a small team is unlikely to win the FA Cup or the Carabao. So the EFL trophy is just, I think,
Okay.
League One,
Yeah,
League,
yeah.
and they play together. And but the teams don't always care that much about it. I think it's a chance to play different players and try it out. But what I was going to say was, me and my friend are at that game, and we were really bored, and we looked at each other and we were like, do we want to be here? Like, should we just go home? It was just really boring. And in my head, I'm like, well, that could be a comedy scene. Two guys who love football, they go to see a football game, and then they
Interesting.
have to admit to each other, because it's freezing cold, it's a boring game. That Leighton Orient were awful; they were so bad. So for me, there's always
Now, since I mean, as we discussed earlier before we started recording, I also wanted to ask you things like five-a-side things, but then I think that would be us just taking away from your speciality. So I'll just stay on this topic for longer. And Daniel, just to ask at the beginning, have you had any exposure of Indian football or Indian audience or Indian sports content creation, something like that?
First of all, before we talk about that, I'm going to go back and let you know that my speciality on the five-a-side pitch, I score a lot of goals. So that's also a
Of
speciality.
course, we will get to that as well then.
Look, I mean, with India, I mean, obviously there's a great sporting culture, like you said earlier on the cricket, and I think the Indian people that I meet in London tend to love sports, love football, and even the content that I make, with the comments and the messages I get. I mean, they're all around the world, but for sure, India is a big audience who just seem to like genuinely love the sports, and I'm always interested in how everyone chooses a team over there. But yeah, I don't think I've seen much content creation from India. But
Well,
I
now you have.
can. What's
Yeah.
that?
Well,
You
now
can
you have.
you can keep following the Indie Football podcast for more such content,
Oh,
or
for sure.
sometimes just watching you speak.
Yeah.
But yeah, please carry on.
But no, that's it really. No, I'm very aware of how big sport is in India, but you guys would have to tell me more. I think.
The reason, and of course, Anukar sir, you can also add it later on. The mindset that I was coming from is that for content creation in India around football, uh, it does have its own struggles because football is not the biggest sport here. Cricket is, which I'm
Mm,
not complaining. I am the biggest cricket fan, but
mm,
so when you are in UK, someone staying in London, like 20 mi, yeah, you said you live in Essex. Do
yeah.
you have content categorizations when it comes to the audience that you're trying to cater to? Like, do you feel that I am only catering to the Arsenals of the world or the Chelsea fans of the world, or you also probably
Question.
say that 7 days, if I work for 7 days, 2 days I am going to do Premier League stuff. I am talking about this comedy content creation part.
Yeah.
2 days I am going to do localized stuff, maybe for Portsmouth, like you
Right.
just mentioned. Or do you feel that feasibility, as far as feasibility or different factors are concerned, it only makes sense for you to target the big clubs in the world?
Very good question. Very good question. I'll probably have a lot to say about this. Let me think.
Yeah,
First
please.
of all, first of all, because I'm from London and I know when I went to school, you either supported Tottenham or Arsenal or West Ham, or if
Yeah.
you didn't know football, you supported Manchester United, right? So because it was London. So I know those rivalries so well that if I want to annoy an Arsenal fan, I can do it so easily, or a Tottenham fan, and I can make comedy that will work for them. It's very easy. Um,
Yeah.
so that's like one side of it. But if I do that too much, people do feel left out. People who come
Hmm.
to my content because they love football and they just see London teams, it it can get boring for them. Now, there's a tricky thing, which is I actually made some sketches about a very, very niche team in America. There's a university in West Virginia called Marshall University, and my wife is from that area. She went to that university, and they have a soccer team that is the local team there. And I made some sketches specifically about that team. Now, the first sketch I did very well. It got 1 million views on TikTok, and it got 1 million on Instagram. And then I made some more, and it got much less, like 20,000 views, 30,000 views. Now, I love making those sketches. I love the character that I created, and the actor, Tom Sansoni, who plays the character who supports that team. Like, we both love doing it. But the audience for those sketches are sort of more limited. So that's one thing. And I'll now say another thing. Sorry if this gets confusing, but I feel like I do two types of sketches. Yeah. One is specific about certain teams, about comedy involving, how much money Manchester City has, or how everyone hates Chelsea, or how Arsenal are not going to win the league this year. Specific, right? But I think some of the best ones are more, and these are the ones that do well around the world, is if I do something that we can all relate to, not only if we're football fans, but if we're just human beings, So if I do a sketch that's a bit about football, let's say it's that boyfriend and girlfriend, and the girlfriend says, we need to go to my family member's funeral today. And the boyfriend says, but it's Manchester City v Bayern Munich in the Champions League. I need to watch it. It's a relatable thing that many can watch. So, yeah, I try and vary it. I think I can't avoid where I'm from and what my knowledge base is. So if I started making sketches about, the Indian national team, my knowledge is not strong. If the Indian national team paid me money and said, for the next month, just make sketches about us, I'd become the biggest expert in the world, But obviously it's kind of, trying to balance all those different things. So my main goal is to interest as many genuine football fans or comedy, fans as I can. But yeah, naturally when you do content, I think when I write stuff, I try and vary it. And I think sometimes I'll have someone who might support a team like Charlton or Portsmouth, but that won't be a key part of the story. So it might be that they're wearing a Portsmouth shirt, they reference a game, but the sketch is actually about a relationship problem, or it's about missing because you've got the flu. So yeah.
Well, no, actually, that's very interesting that you say it, and I'm sure Doipan will add here after it, because I really loved how you said that if it was the Indian football team, you would become the biggest expert, because I think that is like the confidence that is required for script writers when it comes to writing them. And answering your question from earlier when you talked about how football fans here are made, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I think when it comes to India, it is all about the players. Like, I became a Liverpool fan because Steven Gerrard was playing there, because Fernando Torres was playing there. And I think it works a lot for other people also. Like a lot of people who work in our team, they are either United fans or say Real Madrid fans because Ronaldo played for them, right? And I think that is one of the reasons how people in the countries where football isn't played at that sort of world class level, how they become fans. And of course, like every sport has its own things. Of course, like this, like Doipan was talking about cricket. Like this, because of him, I was watching Zimbabwe versus Netherlands six months back. So I mean, I totally understand how sports binds, but making content in all in totality is something that is quite tough when it comes to that. And full credit to you for that, because honestly, and I am sure Toipan would resonate here, we as podcast creators, we know that we struggle with daily problems about what content we should put out, what sort of things should be done. And generally, honestly, if it was more simplistic than that, then we would love that. And for you to garner so many followers, huge credit to you from our side. And again, thank you so much for taking out the time to come on the Indie Football Podcast, because when people like you, creators like you, come and partner with us, it means a lot and it gives us a different dimension, don't you think? Like,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just was wondering the first time when I came across Daniel Johnson, and he has got, Daniel Johnson Films written on his Instagram. It is something that, and I'm sure Daniel might resonate now that he's in the field. Like over the last couple of years, I mean, maybe because I'm a huge sports fanatic, I also just watch sports. When it comes to watching series or movies, I prefer watching sports movies or sports series, not because I love how beautifully someone curled in a kick from the corner spot, but also because what it means, right, to different people. And I just want to tell you that whenever me and Anukash make it big with this indie football podcast, I might as well delve into spaces of making films around football, around sports, around podcasts, because I feel the idea of someone making films has a lot about communicating certain stories which inspires people. So Daniel, whatever you do has a big implication for many people across the globe. I'll just ask you one last question. Do you have anything to share to anyone who's suppose trying to go into the same field as you are, as we are? What are certain things that you would probably say as parting advice?
Sure. I think my main advice would be you have to do things in your own personal style.
Yeah,
There are. I'm trying to think how to explain it. I think, like when you was asking me about how you think of the audience and what teams to focus on,
yeah,
if I try and please everybody, I'm not going to be honest to myself. So honestly, if I woke up tomorrow morning and I had 5 ideas and they were all about Leeds United, that's what I would do, because that's where the creativity is and that's where the idea is. So I think and also like to know that there's, like I was saying, there's so many different styles of content creation, or in what I'm doing with comedy. But I know that my skill set is I've been writing scripts and writing short form scripts for many,
mhm,
many years. I've been directing actors for many, many years. So if I was going to try and, there are some Instagram TikTokers who they put on wigs and football kits and they're running around acting like they're Ten Hag and doing all that. They're very funny, but I
mhm.
couldn't do what they do as well as what they do. And
yeah,
I would like to think if those guys, I can't remember who they are, the guys I'm referring to, but I'd like to think if they tried to do stuff in my style, it wouldn't be great either, because it's not them. So
yeah,
just you have to do your own thing. So, and naturally you will build an audience that way, like with you guys reaching out to me, it meant a lot that I don't know you guys. Well, until now, I didn't know you guys at all. I had no
yeah,
real links to football in India. And now it's, you were doing things in your own way. It meant something to me. And now we get to connect. And this is how you grow, whether it's growing, an audience or just growing connections. This is how you do it. And just to go back to some of the sketches I've made,
yeah,
some of the ones, there are some that have got millions of views, so they look like the successful ones. But some of the sketches that got far fewer views, I've had like players who play for teams commenting on them, or I've had people in the local community where that team's from who it means something to. So you never know who's listening, you never know who's watching. So yeah, just do things in your own way and your own style is for me what it's all about. Because if it's a success and one day we're earning lots of money from doing this, you'd rather be earning money for doing something you love rather than selling out and doing it for the success, you know. So I think let's start as we mean to go on, and just keep it personal and do what we love, you know.
That is beautiful, honestly. And one thing I would say, just on the lighter side of things, that in India we don't really get to see a lot of Tottenham fans, and that too optimistic Tottenham fans. So I
Even
must
I
say,
was going to
Daniel,
say this.
I'll come visit you guys with a case of Tottenham football kits, and we can distribute them around town or something.
sure, we would love to do that sometime around.
Cool. Can I just
But
ask you guys one question, if you don't mind? Like,
Yeah, no worries, no worries.
how did you first come across my stuff?
Okay, so Doipan, can I answer this, or like you want to
yeah,
take the lead?
please. Yeah, it
Okay,
was you who came
so
across
for me,
this.
I would tell you a bit about us. Like, if you have like 3 4 minutes remaining,
Yeah.
so we are the Indie Football Podcast. We started 2 years back. Me and Doi Payan. I'll just give you a bit of an insight. I'm a dentist by profession, and Doi Payan here is into sports management. He has just completed his masters from JSP Mumbai,
Yeah.
which is a quite a renowned institute. So basically, what we are doing here is that we are trying to create a footballing culture in India. We have like 7 8 people in our team who like work with us. Everyone's working part time, and so we have done 65 episodes so far. And what we try through them is to bring about a footballing culture in this country, because like a lot of people watch football here, and what we are trying to do is reach through those grassroots levels, be able to bring about that change in the thinking, because a lot of people talk about it, but when it comes to Indian football, I think that is where we fall behind.
Yeah.
So it is our utmost sort of, I would say, me and Doipan's dream when we wake up every day is to see and bring about a change. It's about the lives we change, and through people like you who are influencing, who are making a difference in your own country with the type of content, we try to bring that out to the masses so that we can connect with them and we can show them how football is changing the lives of people. Because a lot of people, like the Sky Sports podcast with Gary Neville, it's very much about what's happening on the football field. We at the Indie Football Podcast try to bring in those stories related to football that inspire the people to do the things that inspire them.
Nice.
But then what Daniel wanted to ask is, how did we come across his content? So Anukar sir, you will know it.
Yeah, so that is the reason. Like, we saw your post on Instagram, like your reels on Instagram, and we saw the amount of great work that you were doing. So those that was how we, went on to like think that this would be a sort of a differentiator content. Knowing about how you made your way in the social media circle would help not only us but also other creators who are wanting to do something in the football field. So that was one of the reasons, through the Instagram reel, through watching your content on the regular, that made us really want to have you on the Indie Football Podcast.
No, I appreciate it, guys. It's been a lot of fun. Yeah, and listen, always feel free to reach out if I can, help you guys in any way. So
Yeah, absolutely. And the next time whenever Tottenham is playing, we finally know someone to talk to. So that's that's a great place to bet. Thank you, Daniel. We will stay in touch. We'll stay connected. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Please do remember to follow us on Instagram, Indie Football Podcast, and of course Daniel Johnson Films. There's quite a lot to explore, and if you are a sports content creator, I'm sure you will go back home learning a lot. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
thanks.